Alrighty, so first and foremost, welcome everybody to our 5th annual Byrd Center Symposium for Climate Change Research. My name is Karina Peggau. I am the program coordinator here at this wonderful institution, and I'm really excited to celebrate this past year of climate research with all of you. A couple of quick housekeeping things. Again, we are sold out, so please just get comfortable with your neighbors. For emergency exits, there are stairwells on this floor here. There's 2 on either side of the building, one here at all corners. The men's restroom is over here on your right-hand side in the corner, and the women's restroom is on the left-hand side. If you are in need of a gender-inclusive or non-binary restroom, please take the stairs or the elevator down to the first floor here in this left-hand corner. There is a bathroom designated for our non-binary colleagues. Also, while we're gathered here in this building, I'd like to acknowledge that the land that The Ohio State University occupies is the ancestral and contemporary territory of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandotte, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. So specifically, this university resides on land that was ceded in the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the forced removal of tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. So I wanted to take this moment to honor the resiliency of those tribal nations and recognize the different historical contexts that have and continue to affect the indigenous peoples who live on this land. So for those of you who are new here to our annual climate symposium, the purpose of this event is to bring forth emerging topics in climate research. So in planning this event this year, we found ourselves really focused more in the climate health, some emerging research topics, and also kind of climate water, climate tools. There's a lot of new themes that are emerging, and I want to thank the College of Medicine, the Wexner Medical Center, the Global Water Institute, the College of Engineering, and our assortment of sponsors for being a part of making this event happen. I also want to thank the Enterprise for Research, Innovation, and Knowledge, the Sustainability Institute, the Department of Geography, the Department of Internal Medicine, and Wexner Engineering for sponsoring this event. This event is supported by those sponsors and basically those sponsors alone. So thank all. Please, if you see somebody from one of those institutions, please thank them warmly for making this great event happen. Now to move on to kind of the main part of the show, I also want to invite the Assistant Director of the Polar Rock Repository, Jamey Stutz, to the podium to share a few words about the Polar Rock Repository. The Polar Rock Repository is supported by the National Science Foundation's Office of Polar Programs, and it's meticulously maintained by Dr. Aaron Grunow, Dr. Erica Maletic, and of course, Dr. Jamey Stutz himself. So please give him a warm welcome, and I have him saying a few cool words. And
awesome. Thanks for that warm welcome, Karina. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here, very humbled to represent the Polar Rock Repository. Hopefully you guys get a chance to come over and have a look at some of our rocks. As it is, I'm a little out of my comfort zone. I spend my days looking and talking with rocks. I mean, people, geologists, but I'm really happy to be here. So yeah, and kind of with the interest of maybe setting a bit of a mantra for the day, I'd just like to touch on collaboration. So there's really no doubt in my mind that hard things are made a lot easier with friends and with collaborators. And this is especially true in the Antarctic sciences. So we have this amazing Antarctic Treaty that was set up in 1957 that set aside Antarctica for peace and science. That's provided a template for cooperation around such massive projects as the International Space Station, and really has ensured that science, goes forward even during times of kind of international conflict on the other 6 continents. And so, yeah, over the kind of course of my short career, I've been lucky enough to work with people from around the world in Antarctica. And Henry Brecher provided this photo recently that really demonstrates the collaborative spirit has been alive and well for many years in Antarctica. So the Kiwi Byrd you see over there really just highlights the long-standing relationship the United States has with New Zealand, but also with our home institution here, Ohio State, and some other universities back in New Zealand. And to me, collaboration really involves listening, trusting, and engaging with one another in a really meaningful way, but also with a really diverse set of individuals from all walks of life. And I think aligning a team with those factors in mind really ensures resilience when things get tough. So my role at the Polar Rock Repository provides a continuation of the deep field work I've been lucky enough to conduct. And we currently hold over 60,000 rock samples from around Antarctica and the Southern Ocean, and we make these freely available to researchers and educators around the world free of charge. So this really unique archive provides unprecedented access to one of the most inaccessible places in the world. And through collaboration with our donators, the scientists and the educators that we work with, we're able to conduct new science on old rocks and shared some of those new stories and that sense of exploration and discovery across the education spectrum. We also highlight new and creative applications where, basically providing more access to even the most inaccessible parts of the inaccessible. So the bed of the Antarctic ice sheet. We've seen it a couple of times through some drill cores, but we've been lucky enough to work with a few people on so this sample here in the middle, the subglacial precipitate. Such an amazing sample that has lived in the basement of Byrd for many decades. And once it was discovered and offered to scientists, they were able to conduct some new studies to show that pools of water beneath the ice sheet are recording really dramatic changes in the Antarctic ice sheet during ice ages. And this has transformed our understanding of how the Antarctic ice sheet responds to warming. And so it really just shows how dynamic that huge chunk of ice is. So we expect a lot more creative research questions to be asked, hopefully answered with our samples, and really put the challenge to you and your colleagues to kind of seek out some of those questions. So I'm really excited for today's schedule and look forward to meaningful conversations with everybody here. But in particular, I'd like to draw on a past connection with our invited speaker, Heidi. Back in 2016, my partner and I decided to quit our jobs, move to New Zealand, and do our PhDs. Quite an interesting move. We quickly learned of another American couple who had just completed their PhDs, and we were strangely viewed as essentially replacing them. Not possible, but this was the vibe we were getting. And while we didn't get to overlap with them, directly, they offered very kind and timely life advice for living in New Zealand, what bank to go with, what cell phone to get, and really their spirit was felt daily through our mutual Kiwi friends. So it's no surprise that we overlap today here in Central Ohio, given the kind of tiny world, full circle sort of thing that happens in our world all the time. And I'll leave it with that. I'm really excited to hear, to learn from Heidi, and trust that, the collaborative spirit endures after today. Thanks.
So my name is Jason Cervenec. I'm the Education and Outreach Director for the Center. I think I know many of you here in the room today. I'm here to give the Lois Jones Award for Science Access, Engagement, and Communication, which we do annually at this event. This year, you'll see Lois Jones actually has some pictures from her collection that are shown at the front of the room. Sadly, she died very young and also was responsible for taking most of the pictures, so we have very few pictures of her. Lois M. Jones was a geochemist from the Ohio State University who led the first all-woman research expedition to Antarctica in 1969 and became one of the first women to reach the South Pole. In recognition of her trailblazing work, to recollect the advances that have been made, and to acknowledge continued work to increase access within science, engagement with new communities, and communication to different audiences, the Byrd Center Outreach Team established the Lois M. Jones Award for Science Access, Engagement, and Communication. Any member of the Byrd community may be nominated for this work, or may be nominated for this award that have done significant work to advance one or more of the following causes: increase access of underrepresented communities to science education or careers, engage with new communities and research enterprises in ways that may include, but aren't limited to, collection of data, co-production of products, or utilizing findings, and improving or expanding communication of scientific information, research findings, or applied knowledge to audiences and formats that may include print, spoken word, or digital media. The nominee should be a genuine collaborator, demonstrate great tenacity, and be a current or former member of the Byrd Center community. Thank you to Laura Kissel and the committee that went ahead and reviewed this year's nominees. This year's recipient is a top contributor to CERC's Teach the Earth website, a resource for geosciences education lessons that have been well vetted for both content accuracy and pedagogy. She serves as an instructor for the Girls on Ice program, held on the Juneau ice fields, that introduces young women to glaciology and develops the skills, confidence to work in extreme cold and unyielding environments. The winner herself was a Girls on Ice participant as a young woman. The nominator states, in quotes, "I can honestly say that I know of no other person with greater passion, enthusiasm, and dedication to teaching the world about the importance of climate change and environmental degradation to future of our planet. She is truly an inspiration both to her students and to her colleagues. Her energy, her optimism, and her work ethic are to be admired deeply." This year's recipient has won numerous awards for her teaching, including for community service and community-based participation. She was a co-leader of the NSF Integrate Project in Sustainability from Curriculum to Community, has been an active AGU Science to Action Committee member, served as a member of the Subcommittee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion within the National Academy of Sciences Committee on to advance the U.S. Global Change Research Program. She was an affiliate with the Byrd Center while pursuing both her MS and her PhD, and completed a postdoc here. Currently, the winner serves as the Director of Sustainability at Carleton College. This year's Lois M. Jones Award for Science Access, Engagement, and Communication is Dr. Sarah Fortner, who many of you know. As you can imagine, Dr. Fortner actually teaches at Carleton College. She's currently at Carleton College. So there is a medal that will be bestowed to her in the future, but she's not here for today's award to receive the award. We did ask her to join the call, so I think she's on the Zoom this morning. Barry Lyons in Earth Sciences was gracious enough to help make that connection. So congratulations, Sarah, and I look forward to congratulating you in person.
Sarah says thank you. Alrighty, so I think we're on time. We're doing great today. So with each natural disaster, we are becoming more aware and alarmed by our climate situation. In Ohio, extreme precipitation, drought, heat, and poor air quality are but a few reminders that we are not immune to climate change. It is time for us to combine our research, communication, and influence to move towards a climate resilient and solution-oriented future. At this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Heidi Roop. Dr. Roop is the director of the University of Minnesota Climate Adaptation Partnership and an assistant professor of climate science and the extension specialist at the University of Minnesota. She also serves as the director for knowledge transfer for the NSF-funded Coldex Science and Technology Center. This is long, sorry guys. Her research and extension programs combine cutting-edge science and effective science communication to increase the use and integration of climate change information and decision-making at a range of scales, from city and state to national and international levels. Her climate science research takes her around the world, from Antarctica to California and to the shores of Lake Superior. Her book, if you haven't read it, it's a page turner. It's the Climate Action Handbook, which outlines in a highly visual format the everyday ways we can contribute to collective and individual climate solutions. If you brought the book, she'll sign it. In addition to her appointments at the University of Minnesota, she's also an affiliate assistant professor in the School of Public Health at the University of Washington and serves as an expert advisor to a range of organizations and agencies as they seek to build resilience to climate change. Dr. Roop pushes boundaries as a skilled scientist, and she centers listening, partnership, and application at the heart of her research and extension activities. Her work sets an example for all of us, and I look forward to celebrating her work and learning from her. So please, please, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Heidi Roop.
Thanks, Tom. It's a long intro.
Sorry.
Thanks. No, I mean, I think I wrote some of that, unfortunately. Always hard to hear about yourself, but thank you so much for having me here today, for this opportunity to join you in this space. Really excited by the agenda. My talk today is a bit of a mashup of science. I'm going to share a little bit about how we approach climate science and science to action. We're going to talk a little bit about solutions and finding our own way through the complexities and the difficulties of climate action. That hopefully will be a great springboard for conversation that you're going to have throughout the day. I'm going to talk a little bit about climate services. I'm not going to steal Dr. Erin Wilson's thunder, but I'm going to try to ground us all and think about some of these conversations. I'm so excited to see the meaningful integration of health and climate in our conversation, because I think, as we all know, we've moved from really talking about impacts and people wanting to understand, why does climate matter to me? And more importantly, what do I do? What do I do to protect myself? What do I do to protect my family? And how do I show up in community to make collective-based change, that systems-based change that we know is so essential to our abilities to thrive, even under a climate change future. Let's see here. Sorry, maybe we're gonna go like this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, new machine. So as a bit of context, sort of who am I? Who is this? You just heard a lot of kind of academic things, right? I mean, I'm a professor, I'm an extension specialist. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I think is the critical role and opportunity for land grant universities like this one to show up in helping communities respond to the impacts of the changing climate. But my background is in polar science and paleoclimate. I have spent a lot of time looking at annual layers in both sediments and ice cores to mostly understand and reconstruct sort of seasonal and sub-seasonal climate variability and atmospheric circulation over the last 2,000 years. Some of that has been really important in guiding our understanding of just how profoundly different today's climate is from that of the past. Of course, still get to contribute alongside peers and colleagues here at the Byrd Center in working in Antarctica, collecting ice cores, and I think really importantly, leveraging those opportunities and that critical science to engage the public in conversations around, why does this matter to us? Why do these faraway places hold clues and critical understanding about what we as humans will experience and can anticipate in the future? So I am also a mom. I bring a lot of identities with me. We're often discouraged from talking about those alongside being a scientist, but it's impossible to not be who you are when you do your job and are passionate. I hope I can convey to you that I'm passionate not just about the science and the facts and figures, but really truly how we show up as people, as our whole selves, as we seek to confront the challenges of climate change. Because if we don't do that, we're going to miss the boat even more than we already are. And so I welcome you to bring all of your who's today to this space, and embrace those and share those openly, because we carry many identities, and I get introduced as a scientist, but I'm a lot of other things that I think are really important in my being able to do this work and show up and hopefully bring more people along with me towards solutions. So you heard this, I get to lead an organization of people at an organization called the Climate Adaptation Partnership. We have a bold mission to support thriving communities and landscapes. And I really appreciate Jamey mentioning collaboration. We did not plan this. I think that should be a theme that we carry with us through our time and beyond this gathering. Coordination and collaboration are so essential. Building capacity and advancing climate-informed decision-making is really what we do as a mission. The program is jointly supported by our College of Extension and the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences, which is my faculty home. And so we are really sort of sitting across the university. We have support from multiple colleges. I like to joke sometimes it's nice because I report to 2 deans. So if one says no, the other might say yes. You sort of have, it opens up more opportunities, but certainly opens up opportunities to represent really the best about what land-grant universities have to offer the world. And of course, I'm standing here today, but I don't do this work alone. And collaboration is really key. And so I am representing a group of undergraduate students, graduate students, research scientists, staff, climate communications experts, emeritus faculty, Mark Seeley, who, you know, as Jamey said, he replaced, it's like so weird when that happens. I'm a retirement rehire, but it's a new job. But Mark Seeley, for those of you who might not be familiar, he was an extension climatologist for many years, well regarded in the Midwest community, and quite frankly idolized in Minnesota as the weather guy. He's still on the radio every Friday morning and produces a blog called Weather Talk Blog every Friday as part of our team. And so we've been able to continue building on his legacy and also learning from his mentorship and stewardship of our program as we've been growing. So I do this work in collaboration. And I think what's important to note about the team that we've been building is that we are all we represent many disciplines. Eve on my team on the bottom is a graduate student in public policy. Eric on the bottom is studying tribal natural resource management. I've got communications scholars and agricultural experts, folks looking at the cultural dimensions of adaptation. I have evaluators, climate communication specialists, climate modelers. We're hiring GIS expertise. We're in the process of hiring a tribal agricultural extension educator to focus specifically on tribal agriculture and cultural lifeways and foodways as we navigate climate change. We've got an architect on our team. We span a whole range of disciplines, which I think is really what we need. And I think today's conversation is an example of, is that we have to bring health and climate and architecture, engineering, social science, all together, working in close partnership, challenging one another, learning from one another, and really working in community and with community to understand what questions and what information and knowledge is most needed in the moment. I probably don't need to go through a lot of this with an audience like this, but I think it's always helpful to return when we think about something as big and challenging as climate change. What is it that we're trying to do? What are we trying to get our arms around? And when I think about climate solutions or climate risk management, it's really 2 things. We have to prevent the problem from getting worse. This is mitigation. This is something we hear a lot about. Our national conversation tends to almost exclusively be focused on mitigation for a lot of good reasons, right? The choice we still make about how bad climate change gets is really dependent upon us and our abilities to prevent the problem from getting worse through basically avoiding the combustion of fossil fuels. And now we actually have to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, right? To sequester carbon, right? We now are in a position where that's part of our portfolio of need as we seek to address and reach our global climate targets. But as important and in lockstep with prevention measures, we also have to prepare for the changes of climate that we've set in motion. And this is adaptation. And this is really at the heart of the work that I do, in part because we have a team of folks who are really focused on mitigation in Minnesota. There's a center and a group of folks that are really focused together in this overlapping Venn diagram. There are, of course, solutions that do both things, like improving soil health, I would argue is probably leading to be more of a resilience measure, improves water quality, so on and so forth, but while also sequestering carbon. And so things like investing in soil health and those related management practices is kind of a twofer, right? And so we have to be, they're not exclusive and they're not siloed, but I think importantly, we can't have one without the other. And I think what's really important is that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change acknowledges this very clearly. And this is a graphic put together by some colleagues of mine that I think outlines some of the challenge we have if we sort of do an either or stance. So our national discourse and investments tend to predominantly focus almost exclusively on mitigation. That's been changing, happily. We're really seeing that change. And I think because we're weathering the storm. Right, it's here, it's now. And so there's a real call to say, like, how do we prepare? How do we protect ourselves while we also try to prevent the problem from getting worse? And so the gap in our abilities to do both of those things well is called the resiliency gap. And we want that to be as small as possible. And I think it's really important to note that the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, calls us to action towards resilience and says that resilience requires investment. And then, in fact, while the next decade is critical for emissions reduction, it is equally critical for preparation and those investments in adaptation. And the IPCC also notes that adaptation brings multiple benefits from improved agricultural productivity, health outcomes, can drive innovation, can improve food security and food access, improve biodiversity conservation, and overall lead to a reduction in risks and damages. And in many ways, those are lead-ins to really powerful climate conversations, because there are very few people who don't want to manage risk effectively, no matter their values. And so I just sort of call this to action as to why we sort of do this work and why there's an organization like the Climate Adaptation Partnership. I think important to note, there are programs that have been in existence for a long time that have focused really in this space, and we're benefiting from their work and their legacy. There are, in fact, programs that have been recently renamed the Climate Adaptation Partnerships by NOAA. They're been historically referred to as the RISA program. They do similar work. There's Midwest Climate Adaptation Science Centers. We have adaptation science centers across the nation. There are climate hubs. We have a Midwest climate hub that are all working in this domain of thinking about prevention and preparation. And what does that actually look like on the landscape? And so we're a partner in this work. There's collaboration again. We can't do it as one organization. The need and the required perspectives is so much greater. And so we do a range of things. I'm not going to walk through all of them. I'm going to share a few of the projects that we do, but we really span science to action. And we do that by contributing to basic science and research and the development of new climate records, say through the recovery and analysis of ice cores, predominantly through right now. I'm involved in a few ice core projects. We have a new one coming online at Dome C. I'm part of the Center for Oldest Ice Exploration, and I'm also part of the Hercules Dome Ice Core, which is aiming to go back to the Eemian, where we can answer some pretty fundamental questions about the sort of warming we anticipate near the end of the century and what that means both for us and the Antarctic ice sheet. But importantly, closer to home, we do dynamically downscaled climate modeling using regional climate models. This is something next week where we're launching after a couple of years of effort. We have online interactive tools that we've co-created with stakeholders from engineering firms to state agencies, emergency managers, to really equip and empower people with localized information But as any good extension professional would know, data alone are insufficient to alter decision-making. And so are building out dedicated programs sector by sector to provide tailored support and technical assistance in the use and integration of what is often really confusing, complicated, and yes, uncertain future climate information. If we had crystal balls, that would be great. We probably wouldn't be here right now. We would know what the future held, and we would have designed our systems and our society in a way to accommodate that, but we don't have that. Of course, the greatest uncertainty in what the future holds in the context of climate change is us, what we choose to do or not. And so there's uncertainty in the future, and we have to account for that uncertainty and bring people along with us. Alongside this type of research and interaction, we also work with state and federal elected leaders to provide education, to think about how science gets integrated into policy and regulation and the sort of broader context in which we move systems forward. And we are, and I'll describe in a little bit, in a very fortunate position through an investment recently made by the state legislature in Minnesota, building out a sort of first of its kind program to have a dedicated climate resilience extension program with extension educators distributed across the state of Minnesota, providing community-centered support and coordination and access to technical information, but also solutions to climate change. I'm not going to go into this really spinny graph, but there are sessions about climate services. So here, for those folks who are going to break out into those later today, here's a brief primer. It turns out this term climate services, which means many things to many different people, but broadly means helping people use climate related information, whether that's forecast products here and now. What do you do next season? What crops should you plant and when you plant them, right? All the way through to the future climate information that we generate to the end of the century or that our federal partners produce. There's a whole value chain in how we do this work. There are a lot of people who study these processes. And I just want to call your attention to the idea that I think we don't want to silo these rings. They're drawn intentionally to have feedbacks. This comes from a federal report. There was a fast track action committee report on climate services that just came out, really talking about the need to do this. And the reason I put this up here is because I think science shows up in all of these, and many different perspectives show up, and notice they're linked. So even if we are motivated by and are experts in basic science, that's okay. You have a role in this diagram, but there are people who want to be links and bridges and lock arms. And so I invite us to think about, how do we collaborate in ways that honor our various expertise, perspectives, the realities of the institutions and the constraints in which we operate professionally, but also think about, how do we make sure the knowledge that we're generating, and also the knowledge that exists outside of institutions like these and the ones that you may represent, are being included in the conversation and are really meaningfully being linked arms as we think about how do we, I think most of us want to work towards solutions, right? We still have to understand the problem in order to know what solutions work best. But I put this here in that we really are trying to think about, how do we as a team represent all of these things, but also partner with the right people and networks of people to make sure that we are part of this value chain from beginning to end and back again. And so that really motivates a lot of our work. I'm going to describe briefly, and then I know I'm going to go too long, and this is not what you all came here for. So I'm going to get to the climate action piece in just a moment. This for me represents my professional climate action portfolio. And so that is part of why I'm sharing it, just to sort of show what's possible. I've been I started at the University of Minnesota in the pandemic, sort of felt like, I don't know where I am. I'm not from Minnesota, which of course says something. I'm from Wisconsin too, which is almost worse, to be in Minnesota and then say you're from Wisconsin. I kept that sort of a quiet secret for as long as I could. And then I just decided to embrace it. And I put Green Bay Packer things on everything, even though I'm not a Packers fan. Just, people wake up on Zoom when they're, when the Minnesotan, who I'm not anyway. So I've been doing this work in many ways with a quiet team, building a team, somewhat alone. I think a lot of people were wondering, what is she doing over there in Zoom? And we don't really know who she is. We think she's in Minnesota. I was. Right. The pandemic disrupted everything. And I was living in a Zoom world and I didn't know anyone. And I thought, well, what do I do? I'm going to just start like talking to people and meeting people and collaborating in ways that help me move forward, but also speak the language of the institution, right? That's getting grants and writing papers and other things like that. But meanwhile, building a team. And here we are 3 years later, with a whole bunch of projects and products. And now for the first time, core funding to carry us forward with sort of base operational funding. And maybe an office space soon. That's currently the pain point right now, is that we don't have anywhere to sit, but we'll figure that out. We're working on it. But we actually started with research. And it turns out the state legislature was more interested in research than anything else at the time. And so in 2021, we actually got research funding from the state legislature to generate dynamically downscaled climate information for the state of Minnesota. There was a sense that the federal government wasn't moving fast enough, that we had a supercomputer available to us at the university that the state also supported. And it was like, well, you know what, we want the local information. We're not going to wait. And we're going to make this investment. And so that was, and I said, great, we can do that. We've got expert modelers, but that's not going to be enough. And so I'd like to proof of concept this idea of an extension program that provides the technical assistance and how we actually use this information appropriately, because it's not plug and play kind of data. And they were like, great, okay, we're going to do this. And then it turns out that some unexpected partners emerged and said, you know, we're really worried about the future. This includes our Corn Growers Association, which provides research funding from the Minnesota Corn Promotion and Research Council. And we've come together to basically pilot and proof of concept positions that then became the base of a legislative funding request that created this recurring state investment in our program. So we really use data and advancements in science and partnership, the communication piece, to leverage the success. And so now we're building this climate smart agriculture program, utilizing this new information. We just hired an extension educator who's building out a whole program in partnership with the state and our commodity group friends, including the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. So that's an example of how the data really are just a foundational piece, but they don't represent the whole. We're leveraging these same data in partnership with our 1854 Treaty Authority, which is an intertribal natural resource management organization that works over the ceded territory, which is, for those who aren't familiar, essentially just south of Duluth, all the way up the North Shore of Minnesota to the Canadian border. So there are 3 affiliated bands, and they've been implementing an adaptation plan since 2016. We're using this information, the new climate data, we're making it available at a scale and can be pulled from our interactive tools specifically for reservations and ceded territory lands, so they can more easily extract the information that's most relevant. And we're actually evaluating what adaptation investments successes, what it's led to, what has been accomplished since 2016 in the context of building resilience across the landscape. And so that's a place where data, and also thinking about the process of adaptation, what's working, what's not. How do we learn from this leadership? Tribes tend to be way out front. And so there's something to be learned that we really need to make sure that we're understanding. So we're doing that work in partnership with NOAA. And then just as a final example, because I heard about some of the folks who were here today, and I wanted to share that, of course, as climate scientists, we think everything we do is great, and everyone's going to just use it. And it's seamless. So like if I create future climate data and I put it in a tool, like they're going to come. They're going to use it, and like every new road and bridge is just going to like magically be designed with future climate in mind. It turns out not going to happen, in part because we don't speak a shared language with critical friends like architects and engineers who have entirely different workflows. They require entirely different formats of data at a resolution I can't yet provide them. And so we are now working with HGA Architects, which is headquartered in Minneapolis, but works globally, and is a real leader in thinking about how do we make sure that as we're working with clients, climate change and resiliency are integrated into our designs, where we site buildings, how we build HVAC systems, making sure that, and how do our buildings function in community to make sure that they themselves are sort of starting to serve as resilience hubs. So we have a project, again, supported by the state and an amazing group at the university called the Center for Sustainable Building Research. And together we've been working for the last year to figure out, like, how do we talk to one another? How do we develop data that work in different workflows? And now we've been tasked by the state to actually start to articulate, what does it mean to build a resilient building? What would be resilient building standards? And so we have 2 years to figure that out. And then we have to tell the legislature what we think. And so there's a standards, set of standards in Minnesota related to sustainability and energy efficiency. And now they're saying, well, tell us, we keep hearing we need resilient infrastructure. What is a resilient building? So if you have ideas, like, we're crowdsourcing now, but that's a place where science and these workflows become really meaningful, because it becomes about action. It becomes about guidelines against then which architects and engineers have to design, rather than the feel good I might choose to think about future climate when I design this building. It then becomes, I actually have to figure out how to meaningfully do this. And we've thought through the how and the partnerships necessary to do that well. Okay. And so I don't need to remind many in this audience, this is my little land grant is awesome spiel, and why climate and land grant make so much sense together. Because climate change is systems change, it's everything. And extension covers so many things. I get so frustrated. Everyone's like, agriculture is extension. That is all you do. No, my colleagues do economics and SNAP Ed and youth education and forest management, master gardener, master naturalist. Like, there's disaster preparedness and response. We partner with FEMA. We are across so many aspects, from family and individual to food on your table. Yes, we are in agriculture, but there's a huge opportunity to have an organization with a deep geographic reach, an investment that's already existing from the federal government, state government, and often local county government, working across sectors. There's a real untapped potential for extension. And it turns out a lot of our extension, some of us are called agents, some of us are called educators, some of us are called specialists. There's like a whole, anyway, if you're in extension in any capacity, no matter what you do, people often trust you more. I often introduce myself if I go to the legislature, not as assistant professor of climate science, Heidi Roop, right? And I'm like, I'm our state's extension specialist, and I focus on how we manage climate risks in our state. I don't always get applause or a warm welcome, let's be clear, but people tend to trust people. And why is that? Because extension is out in community. We live and are invested in the communities we also serve. And so leveraging that trust and that potential, that opportunity, we are now building out what we hope is we're gonna have missteps. We're gonna probably get a lot of things not right, but we're moving forward. We're experimenting. We're trying to create a model that we hope other land grant universities can follow or build upon, which is really integrating climate and the necessary expertise to use climate science information effectively in an extension program. And so alongside our ag experts and our crops experts and our food health and our cultural and community and health and well-being folks and our economists and our community navigators, we are building in climate expertise across forestry and a range of other sectors, water, health. We're hopefully hiring 2 health and climate extension educators. I'm very excited about that. So if you're looking for a job and you want to move to Minnesota, come on over. I need you on the team, but we're really, really, really excited by the opportunity to have the state have made this investment. And I think the most unexpected and exciting thing is that our partners in the federal government and even in local philanthropies have said, but wait, this is so cool. How do we help? And so we've already been able to leverage 3 positions just by the pure virtue of having this kind of early adoption leadership opportunity in this investment, which of course for me, when I get called back to the legislature in February, is going to be great, because I'm going to be able to say, look, if we build it, they come. And here are all the ways we turned that investment into an even greater investment in the state of Minnesota. Even better if the money comes from the federal government. Legislators love that, right? How much federal money do we get? So I just want to say this, and that we feel really fortunate. We hope we learn a lot. And if you have ideas for how we can make sure as we build out this program, we can get it as best as right the first time around. We're very open to feedback as we co-create this amazing team of folks across the landscape. Okay, that's the science mashup. We're going to move now into just a brief reminder why we're all here. And then we're going to talk about what we're all going to do or continue what we're doing or do more. Okay. All right. So climate change cliff notes. I don't think this crowd needs it, but sometimes it's a good reminder. We don't need to know everything about future climate, but here are a few things that are helpful. This is your 1,300 page plus cliff notes version of what the IPCC says. And you have a resident expert in the crowd. Dr. Aaron Wilson is the lead author of the forthcoming Midwest chapter in the 5th National Climate Assessment. I'm not going to say anything, especially because Aaron's in the room and this is being recorded, about what is in that report. We're not allowed to tell you, but I'm going to pique your curiosity and just know that the leader of that team of experts from across the region is here in the room and a critical asset. Thank you, Aaron. We're never going to be able to say thank you enough for your leadership. Both smarts and like expert cat herding, I have to say. Like herding a bunch of scientists and other folks from across the region to like meet ridiculous deadlines. You're a pro. So there's the messages there will be very little different from this here, from the IPCC, but right, the sort of baseline for why we're doing this and why it's urgent. We know climate change is here. Fortunately, unlike a lot of intractable problems, we know who the problem is, the source of the problem. It's us, all of us, the collective us. Right? We know we've committed to change. We know the more we emit, the worse it gets, right? This is sort of fortunate. It's pretty simple. The solutions are less simple and we're going to get there. But the problem, it's pretty clear. We know we have to reduce risks by preparing. We have to adapt. Sorry, Al Gore. Adaptation was a cop-out. It was like not something we can say or do long ago. But now, of course, because we didn't act on the mitigation side, we're also now need to adapt our way through this. And more importantly, and most importantly, we still choose. Choice is ours. The history books being written right now. Those lines are being drawn every day, right? The words are being put on paper, what we chose to do or not. And we all have an ability to contribute to writing that story. We are writing it now, and we can opt in or we can opt out from determining what the history books will say about this profound opportunity before us. So we know it's urgent. We can't waste time, but we are still profoundly in control of what the outcome will look like for society, and of course the natural world as we move forward. It goes without saying that this year is an exceptional year. 2023, of course, there's El Nino, so we can talk about that offline. But NOAA recently put out a report just talking about how incredibly different 2023 is. In fact, the global surface temperature ranked as the warmest in any such period on record. I love this. There's a greater than 99% probability. Right? God, scientists, I love them. Basically, 2023 will rank as the warmest year on record. And to date, there have been 24 confirmed weather or climate disasters with losses that have exceeded $1 billion. So it's an exceptional year. September was also an exceptional month. I won't go into it. I don't have time, but needless to say, the fingerprints of climate change are here. And in some cases, if you haven't read, there's a great op-ed by Zeke Housefather, who's a climate modeler, just incredible all-around human being, wrote about his sort of feelings of seeing just how much September was warmer than previous Septembers on record and in relationship to climate models. And so if you haven't read that, please do. I can't do it justice, but just suffice to say that we're in it right now, and it's exceptional. All right, so we've committed to change, and now there's like, that was like the 2 slides of sort of doom and gloom-ish. I try not to do the doom and gloom. So like, simply, what does it mean? We could talk about how bad it gets and so on and so forth, and what those range of possible futures look like. But really, our exposure to climate change comes down to those 2 things, right? How well do we prevent the problem from getting worse? And what are we going to do to manage the risks that we already face and will face in the future? It's really that simple. And as we choose to move forward, we of course understand that climate change is systems change. And I will say here, and Jamey, you sort of foregrounded this so well, in that we have to shift our stance. We cannot choose to operate in silos anymore. Climate science on the shelf doesn't help. It's not going to get us where we need to go. Working in the health sector without partnering with climate science, without partnering with communities, we're not going to get where we need to go in terms of improving health outcomes for children or moms. And right, it's all so interconnected that we have to start thinking about solutions and partnerships outside of the silos that are so comfortable to fall back into, and that often our institutions encourage us by way of structure to do. And I had the great privilege of interacting with several of you last night over dinner, those people who are those shifters across silos, those boundary spanners and those boundary breakers. And the work is hard and sometimes slow and certainly not rewarded. So thank you for your leadership and willing to be creative partners across unexpected places, particularly in a large academic institution. And I understand it's an uphill battle, so thank you. All right, so we often talk about the problem, but we don't realize that most of us actually want to see something getting done. 68% of Ohioans agree that I don't have the accent, sorry, agree that global warming is happening. 71% agree that CO2 should be regulated as a pollutant. I was surprised by that one. 71% of anyone in any state, much less, but here we are. And 76% of folks in this state suggest or think that there should be a tax rebates for energy efficiency vehicles or solar panels. This is just a few examples. You look at numbers, it's over 60% want to see individual citizens doing more to address climate change. Well over 60% want to see local governments doing more. Fewer think it's the responsibility of the federal government, but suffice it to say that well over half of us want to see stuff getting done. We might not agree on exactly what that stuff is or on what priority, an order of priority, but people want to see more getting done, right? We are connecting the dots that there's a problem and we want to see solutions. So what do? If I had the answer, I may not be here. I might be retired and like on a beach somewhere. Well, no, probably not, because sea level rise, but haven't quite figured that out yet. But I'd be somewhere. Anyway, I don't know where I'd be. That's a good thing to think about. Maybe Antarctica. I really do like it there. But when I think about what we can do and someone asks me that question, it strikes fear in my heart. Because I'm really good at telling you what the problem is. And I've not been very great at mobilizing my audiences and people with whom I interact toward solutions. And I would get that. How many of you talk about climate change and someone then says, well, what do I do? How many have had that experience? Yeah, okay, great. And how many of you felt empowered and equipped to provide a response that would move that individual or group of people toward action? Okay, we're together in this feeling of complete, like, what? And I talk with thousands of people every year, and I said something like, you know, every action matters. We've all got to do what we can, kind of things that I've been saying today. And I was actually called to task by an editor at the publisher who eventually published the Climate Action Handbook. It's called Sasquatch Books. It's an imprint of Penguin Random House. And I was on a panel with some dear colleagues and also like people way fancier and credentialed than I. And we were having this like unfortunate academic debate about, do individual actions matter? Is it only systems-based change? Individuals don't count, like it's not enough, it's not fast enough. And I blurted out, well, actually, I just think every action matters and we need to like stop this academic push-pull, like we have to move people toward action. But I felt like this on the inside. And so I was tasked by that editor in the audience to quote, put meat on the bone. I was like, oh no, can't I just say buy an electric vehicle, put solar panels on your roof, we're all good to go, that's enough. Those were, of course, things that I couldn't do at the time, still have been unable to implement in my life for many of the reasons that many of us can't do that. There are financial barriers. People rent homes, they don't own homes. Solar panels aren't possible, right? That's not to say if you can do those things, you shouldn't. Those are really high value climate actions you can do if that fits your climate solutions journey, but they're not the only journey. They're not the only way to contribute. And so I had to go on my own learning journey and figure out, how do I know more? How do I do more? What's my own journey? How do I educate myself? And how do I start connecting the dot between the climate impacts people are experiencing? Oh, look, we don't even need slides. We have to connect the dots here. So how many of you think that Americans, and what percentage, you can blurt out numbers, of Americans think that climate change or global warming will harm them personally? Over 50%, 10%, 30%, yes, just over 40%. A little bit over 60% of us think that it will harm people in this country at some point in the future. So we worry that there's a problem. We acknowledge there's a problem. It's not our problem. It's not going to happen to me. If you were breathing wildfire smoke this summer, climate change happened to you already. So we've got to do that. And so there's a disconnect, right? We have to connect the dots. And I firmly believe that the way we connect that dot between impact and action is us, each of us. We all have a role. And so I invite you to think about what your unique role is. And if you want to look at the book, I do think I have a copy. I am like so very much a scientist and not a salesperson. I have a copy of the book if you want to see it in my backpack. This is being recorded too. Sorry, Jen. Anyway, the book is really my own journey in learning and trying to invite others in. I have heard the word for the Byrd Center being the front porch. I'm going to steal that now. I think the Climate Action Handbook really strives to be that front porch. The welcome, come aboard. There's something for you here and we need you. There's something new to learn. There's something new to do. There's another way to be inspired while we understand and grapple with the realities, the very stark realities of what we're working through and navigating today. So unlike a normal climate book, first I was like, I can't write a book. That's not for me. That's not possible. I can't do that. A book won't count. I'm an academic. It's not peer reviewed. I got over that one. Not everyone in my department has, but we're getting there. Turns out there were 812 footnotes when this sucker went into the editor. I got a panicked email back. How are we going to deal with 812 footnotes? It's a tiny book and you get 300 words per action. There are 100 actions. And then every action is paired with an infographic or a pull quote. And so it was an ultimate collaboration of a scientist who can't draw a stick figure and an artist named Joshua Powell who could take information and work magic. These are just a subset of the over 65 graphics in the book that we looked at data together. And then like a couple days later, like magic would appear in my inbox. I don't know how he did it. I just so appreciate brains and the ability to do this. And so the Climate Action Handbook is really just that. It's a handbook. You don't have to read it in any order. I sort of had criteria. I was like, well, I can't write a book, so I don't know how we're going to do this. But they assured me that teamwork makes the dream work. And I said, I myself don't sit down and read long format climate books because I don't know, there's so many reasons, but also it's really hard. And so I think most people aren't going to mobilize if we just do like chapters without colors or pictures or things. And so there's a lot missing. 300 words isn't a lot, especially for a scientist, right? That 812 averaged about, it was what, 12 to 18 citations per 300 words. It was just kind of ridiculous in hindsight. But it really is meant to be a handbook. And it turns out when they said, do 100 things, I was like, that's really kitschy. I don't love that. And there aren't 100 things. They said, we're going to stick with it. Just try, start making a list. And it turns out climate solutions are all around us. There are opportunities to think about climate in our everyday lives, even if climate and climate change and climate solutions isn't the primary motivator for doing something. I love to clip coupons. I love saving money. Even if it's 5 cents, I'm like here for it. It like gets my heart rate up. I'm just like so excited, right? If I save money, it's the first thing I tell people, right? Isn't that like an iconically Midwestern thing to do? Yeah, I am that person. I'm totally that person. And so for me, sometimes I do something because it saves me money. And like the twofer is it's also good for the planet and it's going to prevent emissions or it's going to build resilience in my home or for my child. And I think we have to be okay with that. I think we have to be okay saying, you know what, it's all right if a primary reason you do something is X and it brings this other climate benefit. And it turns out they're everywhere. It's in our education, it's in our health and well-being, how we engage and support community, how we champion change. Yes, of course, energy production and transportation. It's all around us. And to come full circle, unsurprisingly, when I thought about all these climate solutions and spent a lot of time sort of on long walks thinking, how am I going to come up with 100? How am I going to come up with 100? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. I thought, well, you know what? We're going to start by thinking about those things that prevent the problem from getting worse, the things a lot of us hear about. And I'm also going to think about the ways that we prepare. So these are just some graphics. And again, it's a lot of information in this size, but I think the book, it's really spend more time looking at the graphics and learning. This one is particularly about food and food waste and how we dispose of food in this country. The middle one is actually about driving habits and road rage, which I found fascinating as someone who maybe has a little bit of road rage, right? We're Midwesterners. I'm like little passive aggressive, and then you put me in the confines of a car with no one else in it. So that's one of the things I'm working on, like climate change, road rage, how we travel, right? There's so many things we can do to prevent the problem from getting worse. Those are our missions. And then there's a lot we can do to prepare our communities and our own landscapes and our own homes and our own families for the impacts of climate change. This is my favorite sort of anecdotal one. I'm doing an informal national survey as I talk about this book. How many of you have a stay bin or a go bag, that thing you're going to rely on in a moment of a disaster? Okay, y'all are above average. Health professionals, any thoughts or reflections on that number? Strike fear in your heart? Yes, great. All right, there's one thing we can do. Again, you might not do it because of climate change, or maybe that's the motivating variable that helps you think about, you know what, it might be prudent to have some water, or think about what I'm going to do. What papers do I need when I might need to leave my home? And more importantly, how might I show up for my neighbor when disaster strikes? Very few of us don't want to be able to show up for people in need. Never really talked to anyone who said, nah, like I'd rather just let my neighbors suffer, right? Our preparedness and own resilience and investment can be really helpful. And I've actually heard from people who said, you know what, I was really inspired by that. And I've gone and we've started an email list in our community. And I bought a backup power battery pack, and I've invited my neighbors to come over if they need to charge phones or do anything else. And we figured out who has critical devices that might require power. And then some other neighbor offered to store water and buy one of these new water filtration kits that communities can use sort of on scale. And so again, small things can lead to big change, and they can help communities be prepared. And also our emergency managers don't have enough resources to serve everyone in a crisis, and they keep coming time and again. We've had $24 billion disasters. The average before this was 8.1, right? It's more and more frequent, and yet the resources to account don't match. So I invite you to think more broadly. This is probably the main take home is I invite you to think about your climate action footprint instead of your carbon footprint. Carbon footprints, of course, are important. They're good to know. They're also propagated by the fossil fuel industry to shift the blame of burden to us as individuals. Like, you're a little footprint, that's the problem. Never mind our big behemoth of a boot over here tromping around. Don't look here, nothing to see. Right. And so I invite you to think more holistically, and I give yourself credit and invite people in on this journey to think about all the actions we take count. Okay, and to mitigate the question I know is coming, and I'm almost done here. We're going to fly through these. Someone's going to say, well, what's the one thing I can do? And I'm going to say, can't tell you the one thing. I'm not going to tell you the 5 things because it turns out it's your own journey. What you can do today, what you might want to do tomorrow, that's up to you, right? We all need a guidebook, hence this handbook, right? To help us think about what's possible, where there's opportunity for us if an electric vehicle isn't within financial reach. Oh, $55,000 for, it's like, come on. Anyway, we're getting there someday. Right? We can't all do those things. So I'm not going to give you the one answer. I'm not going to tell you what is the best solution for you today or what you should tell other people to do. There's a whole host of things, but I'm going to give you the 5 sort of the actions towards how I think we can catalyze action. We're going to roll through these quickly. All right. We got to center this work in our actions and strengths. If we can't get out of bed in the morning and keep doing this work, even in small incremental steps, we're not going to get where we need to be. And we also have to invite everyone to bring their diversity of perspectives and approaches to the table and value those. Because I still believe, even after pulling together this text and those 812 footnotes, I believe even more firmly than when I said on that panel that every action matters. Every action by anyone doing whatever they can matters. And we have to acknowledge that and accept that that matters. It might not be the thing you can do or that you want to see more of, but it still counts because it sure is better than doing nothing or saying you don't have a seat at this table because what you're doing isn't big enough or bold enough or reduce enough emissions. I think we don't have time for that. So we also have to do the work that gets us out of bed in the morning. And so I invite you to really think about, what are you good at? What passions and strengths do you bring so that you can be sustained in your journey towards solutions? All right. We have to use our energy wisely. This is sort of a semi-obvious one, right? Where you can opt into energy efficiency and renewable energy. This is something Josh pulled together of a house, for example, with a bunch of different opportunities for energy efficiency and ways you can save money. And so this is the sort of mitigation piece. But I think there's other forms of energy we really need to conserve and use wisely. I know there's some people in the audience who have the answer to this, so I invite you to not cheat, but that's okay if you do. Just quickly, any ideas what these 3 dots represent? They reference a form of energy. The colors are meant to fool you, just as a... Any ideas?
Big one is fossil fuel.
Fossil fuels, okay. The big yellow sun. All right, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. I know you're waiting, bated breath. That yellow sun represents the percent of adult Americans who are cautious or concerned, and basically want to have a friendly, trusting conversation and be activated towards doing something about climate change. That blue dot, it's about proportionally represents 9% of the adult American population that deny or dismiss global warming. How many of us spend a lot of time worrying about that blue dot and how we're going to convince them or change them or alter their opinion, or I don't know what? I hear it a lot. Well, we just have to convince the people who are unconvincible. Well, that's not a very good use of energy when it's finite and we have a whole bunch of things we're worried about on the daily basis in addition to climate change. There is a bright sun of invitation pulling us that I don't think we're spending enough time really engaging and thinking about. And those are the people often around us. There's a spiral of silence around climate change because we think that this is the majority of people who don't think it's happening, and that represents, right, it's inverted, when in fact those around us are just looking for a trusted place and space to have a conversation. So I invite you to commit to communicate. You don't have to be a scientist or know the ins and outs or tell me how much global average temperature has changed, because most people don't care. They care about why it matters to them and what they can do. And you are best equipped to do that for the people in the community with whom you are in community, whether that's a faith group or your family. And we've talked about the cranky uncle in previous conversations. But please communicate in whatever way you can. You are the expert. You are the expert, and the people you talk with are also experts. They are experts in what they care about, what they're concerned about, and what they value. Look to the ballot box. Okay, 0.1% of our elected leaders work at the federal level. I like intuitively kind of knew that, but when I saw the numbers, I was like, oh, how many of us spend a lot of time worrying about that 0.1%? Okay, I do. Maybe disproportionately. Well, I fail to deeply engage with the 96.3% of elected leaders in this country who work at the local level. They are often making important decisions about where that 0.1% of elected leaders have allocated money to our states, where that money goes and how it's used. They're the same people. I like to use potholes as an example. I'm the lady down at the legislature saying, do you care about climate change? Have you driven over a pothole on your way here? Potholes and climate change are connected, right? Can we talk about your transportation budget? They really don't like me down there. But the entry point isn't climate, it's potholes. It's that broken car you have in the shop now, right? Local leaders drive over those same potholes. Their kids are in our same schools, right? That doesn't always mean you're going to have success, but the points of connection are so much closer to home. And there's so many more of them. There are over 500,000 elected leaders in this country. That's over 500,000 points of decision-making and opportunity. And importantly, I appreciate that voting comes with challenges in this country and isn't accessible to everyone. But we also have an opportunity to move beyond the ballot boxes, that not just vote, but engage. 90% of registered voters in this country, well, 70% of us want to see our country transition to renewable energy by mid-century. 90% of us report having never contacted an elected leader about climate change. 90%. And they don't want a long-winded, dear so-and-so. They want to know what you care about and why, and even better if it connects to legislation, but that doesn't have to be a huge burden to connect your desires for your community with the people who make those decisions. And it's not just people at the Capitol. These are school boards. These are city councils, water districts. We have conservation districts in Minnesota, right? There are opportunities for climate decisions everywhere. And just as a quick closing, as we move through this work, I don't want you to get the sense that I say that only individual actions matter while we deny the fact that there are systems working against our success. There are. But we have to find ways to engage as individuals, to work at the community level, and as the collective, to shift those systems towards the future that we want. And so we have to do all of those things. And some of us are going to work in different spaces, but all together on our own unique journeys through climate solutions, I think we're better able to get where we want to go. And if we don't contribute, then my view of what the world should look like is different than your view of the world and your view of the world, your view of the world. But what if we all came together and thought about what's possible and work towards that and bring our unique strengths and abilities to do that? So I invite you on your climate solutions journey, whether starting it or you're continuing it or you're redefining it. But I wanna just sort of end with something that I think is really powerful that stemmed out of Climate Week a few weeks ago in New York. There was Climate Week, a bunch of the who's of the climate world and the policy world and the corporate world all talk about climate and climate solutions. And Dr. Robin Wall-Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass, she's an ecologist, brings a whole bunch of other wonderful credentials, is just an incredible human being who's made a huge impact on this planet for a multitude of reasons. She wrote an op-ed, and in that, I encourage you to check it out if you haven't. But she outlined something that really sits with me, and I'd like you to carry this with you, or at least I guess this is in my part of naming some of the tough realities of doing this work. So she said, "The earth asks that we give our considerable gifts." You each have considerable gifts, by the way, just as a friendly reminder. "And we give those considerable gifts in return for all we have been given, and in return for all we have taken. We are called to a movement made of equal parts outrage and love." I am outraged. And I am so full of love and hope. Like last night's dinner, I got to catch sprinkles of the amazing things that people are doing here at this institution, working with community partners, public health authorities, We've got folks moving into planning jobs and bringing sustainability into them to transform our communities towards a brighter future. I am so full of love and hope from that, but outraged, right? There's so many things working against us. It's not fast enough. The work's not being rewarded. So I invite you to name and be okay and hold those things. In some ways, I feel like I've been given permission through these words from someone whom I really respect. And so I just want to not walk through this and say, you know, it's all roses and we're going to get there, and not name the fact that this work is really hard. I cried in front of a bunch of people the other day and it was like really cathartic. And I was like, oh, I don't know how that's going to go over, but you can tell I'm like, I'm outraged. I'm so sad for my child. I'm so worried for us, but also so hopeful. And like, what a confusing, my toddler is almost 4 and we're working a lot through emotions. And she was laughing and crying at the same time. And I thought, you know what, I'm working through learning emotions and how to name them and like grapple with this reality that we can feel a multitude of things simultaneously and be okay with that, but also name it. And so I invite you to honor that this work is hard and that we have to be mindful of our heads on our hearts as we move through this work and lean into our strengths and passions, because if we don't do that, we won't get it right. And if sometimes that means not doing anything or taking a break, please do it. Please do it. It is hard and exhausting work, right? I like feel that tension in my chest, that outrage and that love. And it is like, sometimes it's a pit in the stomach and it's hard. Sometimes I need to take a breath. And so with that, I am going to conclude with my favorite action in the book, which I think was probably the first one I came up with, mostly because my grandmother taught me this, an attitude of gratitude. And I won't read you from the book, but it's probably my favorite thing. And I appreciate that we started here the morning together today with an award, with acknowledging Sarah's amazing contributions to climate education, to advancing the federal landscape of conversations around the critical role of climate and education, and the whole long list of things that Sarah, she's still on. Sarah, I adore you. Thank you for all you do. That award was so well deserved. But we need to celebrate success and extend gratitude. And so I want to invite you all today, and we won't have time for this, but I would like you to thank someone, even if they're not in this room. Just tell someone else something you're grateful for, that you've seen someone else do. Acknowledge someone in this crowd for the work they're doing. Because we know that recipients of gratitude are more likely to perform the act for which they've received gratitude again. Turns out our brains are tricky like that. We like rewards, we like positive feedback. So I invite you to extend gratitude and celebrate success no matter how big or small, and name it and do it and try to do it every day. It can be a simple thank you text, it can be an acknowledgement passing in the hallway, or it can be a thoughtful written note. Send an elected leader a thank you note. How many of you think they get thank you notes? I suspect not many. So I'm going to leave you today and have you embark on the rest of our time together with this note of gratitude. I want to thank you for having me here today, for spending an hour listening to me. I see an hour and 51 seconds. And thank you for all the work you do. It is all so important and so valued. And I know there are science icons in this room who have been really important foundational building blocks in my own science career. So thank you so much for creating the space and opportunity for people like me to do this work and to pursue careers like this. So thank you all. And I can't wait to learn with you for the remainder of the day and hopefully beyond our time together today and well into the future. So thank you so much. I feel like I need to let my hair back.
So at this time, I invite questions. We have about, say, 7 or 8 minutes to ask some questions. And I have those of you who are on Zoom, Now it's time to put your stuff in the Q&A box. So please go ahead.
And I'm also here all day.
Yes, and Heidi's here all day too, so don't get your question. She's around for lunch as well, an hour for that. So now's the time for your questions. Just put a hand up. Heidi, I'll let you direct.
Or if you want to say your gratitude out loud, I invite you to do that like in this space if you're comfortable. If there's someone or something you're thankful for in this space, I also invite you to name that here. It can be really empowering to hear gratitude in front of a crowd as well. I made him tired. There's coffee between. Yes.
Well, thank you to you.
Thank you.
Tremendous talk, and I only have one page left in my notebook. I really also, I appreciate so many things about your talk. One thing that I looked up while you were talking is the Minnesota State Legislature Democratic, and it turns out that it is.
Yes.
There's a tripartite.
Yep.
We are not here in Ohio, as you might know, and I just wondered if you might comment.
Yes, I think we are now in that fortunate situation. I will say that broadly, this work tends to be championed by one party over another. But I will say I feel really fortunate that when I first started working with the state legislature in Minnesota, we did not have, we were a divided government. And we actually had support on both sides of the aisle for some of our work. And so, and some of that is through, I think what ultimately ended up being some unexpected partnerships across commodity groups and the Nature Conservancy. I mean, there were letters coming in from folks that traditionally didn't align around the same priorities. And I think for many of us, and I don't want to speak for my partners, I think that's been a really powerful learning experience to say where is the shared ground? Where is the opportunity for forward momentum? I think, and Aaron is a pro in this landscape. For me, yes, it's still a partisan topic, no question, right? There are whole policies and approaches being drafted for, the federal landscape to shift away from the sort of climate action that's happening. So there's a very real reality. I maybe have a misconceptions about the Ohio political landscape because of the national conversation, of course, is happening around your politics, particularly at the national level right now. But I think for me, it has been really about, and this is the opportunity of the angle through which I come at this work, which is that it's about risk management. There's a lot of shared values around being fiscally responsible. It turns out there's a lot of data, if data is the thing that moves hearts and minds, often it isn't, right, that show that it's a smart investment, and that we're exposing ourselves to undue potential financial harm, right? We even think about our bond ratings as states. How cheap is it going to be for us to get money to do the critical projects we need to do? Turns out climate change is now a part of that decision. Moody's is downgrading states, making it more expensive to do work you want to do. And so I think some of it is about figuring out that fluency of like, what is the shared value? What is the connection in, rather than sort of the beat them over the head with the planet has warmed. And I think there is not a lot of support from the Republican Party for some of our work, not wholesale. I don't think we can't black and white it so much, I think. But a lot of the questions, and I think this comes down to being more effective communicators, because they're really legitimate questions. They're maybe not always authentic questions, but like, if we as a state make this investment, will it change the global average temperature? More often than not, the scientific answer to that is no, it won't. It will have no measurable change on global average temperature. And I think we have to be honest, right? That's our job. I don't do advocacy. I'm an academic, right? I go in that and I'm educating. And so I have to be honest and say, well, no, actually, representative, it won't. But be equipped to backfill with but here are all the other things. Like if we choose to put our head in the sand, here are the other ways that I know you care about. And so I think really understanding and becoming effective communicators and bringing other voices to do the communication is so essential. Most people don't want to hear from me, right? And so how do we build groups of unexpected actors who are also fluent in and represent the values that we're trying to represent? So it's a long-winded answer. I don't have a perfect solution. It's been a lot of trial and error. And honestly, I think a lot of it is about showing up with an authentic ability to listen and also know where you might find unexpected allies for certain things. We're not going to get all of it. That's true even in in a trifecta. I mean, and we're not going to get it all right. We're learning that right now. There are pain points, and we had a very ambitious climate agenda that passed through the legislature in Minnesota last session. And there are things about it that we're trying to like, whoa, wait, that happened, and the language means this, and so we're learning, but I think we learn by doing. So, yeah. You want me to just?
I have just one thing online in terms of gratitude. Keynote, many up here. It's grateful for you taking the time to give a tremendous presentation, and that there are so many messages to take forward. And
oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, we've got one in the back. Awesome. Thank you. So that was a shout out of gratitude. I love it. Yes.
Maybe a long question, but I'll try to summarize it. When we're talking about climate related issues or climate change being the driver for a lot of the issues, we're talking about a cynical problem that we should be focused on. Depending upon where you go and what time frame you're looking at, there are competing interests even within our community, where, just to give you an example, here in Ohio, water quality tends to be a huge problem that we're trying to solve for the Lake Erie. Trying to figure out how to balance that or not balance that and bring it back to that cynical issue. How would you address that, being a communicator? I'm an extension specialist. I can relate to you.
Thank you. Yay.
So,
go extension.
But that's a problem that I've been struggling with, is where do you find that place? Do you explain this hierarchy to people, or do you just make it happen for one sector and then deal with the next one?
Yeah, so I don't know that I would say there's a hierarchy. I think that climate there's a through line, right? I think so. For me, this might not be the answer. We have different sort of water quality related water management challenges. There's lots of tiling in Minnesota, or so harmful algal blooms, all the things. So I would approach that in climate being a lens through which we need to pass any solution, because the context in which we're managing water quality now and what we deploy may or may not hold water in 10 or 15 or even 20 years from now. And so I think that there isn't an order of hierarchy. It's sort of saying, well, okay, this is the risk we're managing for today. Ideally, we're deploying a solution or an intervention that's going to withstand time, or we're going to have a signpost, and in 10 years, we're going to revisit and say, is this working or not? But so often we're doing that by looking in the rear view mirror, especially when we talk about what's driving water quality, what's amplifying, say, inputs from agricultural lands, right? Well, we know water temperature. We're still trying to unpack the nuances, right? I have a postdoc right now who's going to be looking at smaller lakes and saying, well, what will future lake water temperature mean for harmful algal blooms if we decouple the ag signal from the quote unquote climate signal? And so I think it's really about being thoughtful about the solutions and interventions you're trying to deploy, and whether climate will hinder or amplify or make more successful those interventions. So I don't see them as separate. I see them as integrated. And that's where the challenge and the need for collaboration are so essential, because we're starting to talk more about manure hauling and things like that. How will that impact? Right? That I'm not a manure management expert, but it turns out in extension there is one. And so we're trying to think about how do our teams collaboratively work together, because it's not a fair assumption that everybody has to be an expert in climate and then all the other things with which they're experts, right? And so that is part of our approach in Minnesota, is like understanding that we need to build a team of people who can partner to say, all right, what's the science, what's the evidence, and what are the practices we can use, and how might climate alter whether we get the outcome we're looking for or not. So maybe that's a tool. I don't know. Happy to chat more.
So I'm fascinated what Minnesota sections they were doing, the investment we're making. It's really exciting. I'm curious, sort of like you talk about climate change, and then you talk about direct climate impact. I was talking to threatening to climate change. I'm curious to what extent that order of impact is being considered by your team, because it seems like they're in crazy with the conditions in which they're going to deal with climate become more resilient, but also attractive. My colleague, Roop, was saying that having all these West Coasters moving because it's Minnesota and it's a great place to go. I know in Duluth's been considered one of the top destinations for like climate refuge. I'm curious about how that plays into this, because that's going to be another consequence for communities in a state like Minnesota that really have someone.
Yeah, right. So I think there's a science communication challenge. I really hate the premise that there are climate proof anywhere. Like, there are people who are going to experience different impacts. They're going to experience possibly more severe impacts. But this idea that there's climate proof Duluth, because of the physical parameters, it's near a large body of water that happens to be cool, and it's not going to have as many extreme days, but like, there was 5 inches of rain that fell over a weekend and flooded streets, and there's critical infrastructure that's failing, and there are communities that don't have access to basic services in the city right now. And so I think part of what makes a city, no city is climate proof, right? We're like climate ready. I don't know, insert the words you want. Duluth has been an unfortunate recipient possibly of, there was I believe it was Harvard studied, like put a bunch of sort of physical parameters around the places that were going to fare best in climate, and climate proof Duluth is pretty sticky. It's a message that sticks, right? And I will say, so while Mayor Larson, I'm not familiar with all of her approaches, I have heard her, read her remarks in comments in the New York Times and other places. And I know their sustainability director, Mindy Granley, quite well. And there are concerns about that. And I think the undercurrent reality that they're confronting is that there's a lot of press about the place, but there are a lot of hard realities that they are working to solve to be climate ready or climate proof, not because it's like a place that you should all come. Sure, they want that. But Mayor Larson has also said, like, but wait, like, not, we aren't going to be climate ready unless there are all these things we get in place, like renewable energy, and deal with a bunch of environmental justice issues, and think about how we have resilient infrastructure and health services and education systems, right? So there is, I think you can never convey all of that in a news article, or a one-line clip, but I think Duluth is leading the way. In many ways, they're an example. They've been elevated, and part of that is because they have creative leadership. They're securing resources from the federal government to do things, but there's a whole long list of things they aren't yet able to do. And some of that, I think, is really laser focused on solving and serving the people who call Duluth home now. And I'm not a member of that community. I have staff who live there, and we talk about these issues, and I work with them in St. Louis County on occasion, but I think it's in some ways unfortunate. But yes, there is anecdotally from realtors and others. I know a few people from California who are moving to Duluth. It's a great place to live, but now they're, look at any mountain town in the US, right? There's affordability issues now. There are housing issues now. There are students can't get housing, people working in jobs that can't find housing now as a consequence. And so it's amplifying a lot of problems and challenges that I don't think are going away. And I think they're being as thoughtful as possible while also being a small community that's resource constrained, and is still also operating in a political environment. So I think there's leadership. Minnesota's, we're a complicated landscape too, right? There's no one size fits all solution. I think Duluth's really trying. We're learning a lot from what they're doing, and also what we can do differently and better. But I do know they're thinking about those systems and impacts and what it would mean to really become that community that is already starting to experience people moving there as a consequence of climate and other factors.
I bring that up, but it's simple to file maybe experiencing, especially experiencing some of that.
Yeah.
Third order consequences of climate change.
Yeah, and I've heard there's already some of those pressures with affordability and housing, and that are being amplified by other factors, right? And that's where, like, you have to say, is climate, like, how does climate get integrated in these pressures? Because there's growth and development in industry and change, and so it becomes really complicated because it's a puzzle piece that fits in a much broader, more complex puzzle that isn't always clear how it fits together. So yeah, I think that's why we need all of us bringing our own perspectives and thinking about what do we do, how do we do it, and how do we learn from what others are doing and their leadership. Coffee now, yeah.
So in a moment, Karina will be giving the instructions for breaking up for the next sessions and also for lunch. But on that theme of gratitude, I think it's always important as we have chapters in our lives, as people come and go, we take a chance to acknowledge that. So I want to make sure I acknowledge the organizer behind this year and last year's Byrd Center Symposium. In fact, this person, Karina, has been involved in all 5 years at some capacity. Karina was originally hired as an undergraduate intern in August 2018, but she had already traveled to Antarctica and Greenland before she arrived at the Byrd Center. Over the last few years, she's interacted with over 11,000 people in the course of her programs. Declining a position in Texas, when she completed her undergraduate degree in the School of Earth Sciences, she came to work at the Byrd Center on our polar literacy grant. Little did she know that the pandemic would end up disrupting the next few years. Karina was instrumental in virtualizing all of our programs in March 2020, meaning that the Byrd Center never canceled. I repeat, never canceled an internal or external program because of the pandemic. I'm profoundly indebted to her for her tenacity she displayed in continuing to adjust and innovate to all the changes that were brought our way. She also cares deeply about people and took time to make sure that everybody on our team was looked after even when times got rough. Over the past 2 years, Karina has served on faculty search committees, served on an advisory committee for local emergency management, advanced diversity, equity, and inclusion work at the center, and completed her master's in city and regional planning. We are very fortunate to announce that her next career chapter will continue in Central Ohio. It will start in about 2.5 weeks, and we hope that we will continue to collaborate on projects in the future. Karina, thank you for your 5 years of service to the Byrd Center and to the wider community.
You're quite tall. Thanks, Jason. And thanks again, everyone, for coming here and celebrating this, I guess, last hurrah here for me. So it's really been a treat to facilitate these events, to meet all of you. And thanks again, Heidi, for coming out and joining us. So with that, we'll kind of pivot over to the next steps for our symposium. We have normally, or last year we met again back in this space, but actually we are not doing that. We have just one keynote speaker and she's here with us all day. So please do take advantage of her time here and meet her for lunch. But now we're going to transition to a really quick break and then break out into our first workshop. Unfortunately, our climate and health workshop, we had to postpone due to illness. So please direct yourselves to the coffee and then to either room 177 on the first floor or to room 240, this room here, for either our climate tools workshop with Erin Wilson and Getty Davis and the emerging research topics presentation with Tom Dara and Amanda Davey. So we'll have to do a little bit of shifting, but you have 2 workshops to choose from. And to our presenters, please allow like 5 extra minutes for folks to like use the bathroom and come back. After that, we will have lunch. Lunch will be catered downstairs in the main hallway between room 176 and 177. It is pizza. We do have gluten-free options and vegan options for those of you with dietary restrictions. Lunch will begin around 12:15 with some, again, wiggle room for a little bit of being behind schedule today. But please do enjoy lunch. And at 1:15, we'll break out to our second round of climate workshops, health tools and remote sensing. Those are proceeding as scheduled. So that will be at 1:15 and there are agendas posted around the building. And last but not least, if you have the time on your wonderful Friday afternoons at 2:20, we have our poster session. We have a record number of 27 posters presented by an assortment of students and staff and faculty. There will be some mocktails and some appetizers being served. So please do stick around for that wonderful opportunity to network and see all of the great research that has been going on over the last year. And without further ado, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And we look forward to seeing future collaboration opportunities with all of you. Again, thank you so much.
lot